Regretfully, we don't need someone with your kind of impairment. Try to live as best you can. What is this? That's what the letter that was on the table said, and it was addressed to me. Both of my legs were disabled from birth. I must have been viewed as a bother in comparison to my sister, who is not disabled. Then I received a call from my dad on my phone. "Hi, Odessa. Have you read the letter?" I tried to read it, but that's what it means. Goodbye. Hold on a second. Is there another thing? Is there anything else? What does this letter mean? It means precisely what it says. We've had enough of helping a daughter like you. Don't be concerned about us. The call ended suddenly with that. After considering my response, I called my mother. "Hello, Mom. From your reaction, I guess you've read the letter. So, someone with a disability like me is a nuisance? It's as if I'm some kind of monster." "Yes, but you don't have to worry about anything anymore." 8 years have passed since those shocking words. Then, my father appeared in the high-rise apartment where I live. "How can someone with a disability like you live in a place like this?" "Well, I can tell you." When I revealed that secret to my father, he became distraught and struggled to cope. My name is Odessa. I will be 26 years old this year. Currently, I live on the 55th floor of a high-rise apartment and enjoy a comfortable life. However, achieving this lifestyle was accompanied by many difficulties. One reason is that I have a congenital disease that weakens my muscles. I still remember my father's unforgettable words. I think it was when I was in kindergarten. "Why did someone with disabilities like you have to be born? It's your fault, isn't it? Amy is healthy and doesn't have disabilities." Amy is my sister, 2 years older than me. At that time, I was listening to my parents' conversation in the living room. My room was next to the living room, prepared for emergencies. Even as a young child, I could sense the dissatisfaction directed towards me. There's no need to say such things. Then from now on, you take care of Odessa. What are you saying? Do you even have any awareness of being a father? Please, I'm leaving the rest to you. I quietly covered myself with the futon. From that day onwards, their attitude towards me became noticeably colder and harsher. Even when I spoke to them, I did not receive appropriate responses. Indeed, my congenital physical disabilities might be the cause. Afterward, my mother has always been considerate to ensure I do not worry. Despite such circumstances, I actively do what I can on my own, and I do not feel pessimistic about being born with this condition. In particular, I feel the strong influence of my sister in how I perceive things. I overslept a bit. I was up late last night. Sorry about that. No problem. I managed to get dressed on my own for the most part. I'll help you. Thanks. But first, you need to get ready, sis. Since elementary school, my sister Amy had been helping me with my morning preparations. However, my father didn't approve of this, often complaining, "How long do you intend to keep doing this?" "It'll be over soon. Odessa should be able to do it herself. Come here, you can do it, right?" "Yes, While changing, Amy came to help me without our father noticing. "Sorry about earlier." "Don't worry about it. I can't always rely on you." During this, Amy gently hugged me. "What's wrong all of a sudden?" "It's okay, Odessa. I'll protect you." "Then I'll do my best to protect you too, sis." From such exchanges, I felt that our bond as sisters deepened even more. We made a point not to talk much in front of our father. We thought he might say something if he saw us being close. "Then I'm off." "Okay, take care." Father would sometimes give up his days off and go to work several times a month. Those days felt like a relief for me. Usually, when I was playing games, I would often be scolded harshly. Today, since Dad isn't here, let's play games to our heart's content. Okay, yes, but let's not overdo it. Don't worry. After that, my sister and I enjoyed playing video games in the living room. About 2 hours must have passed. At that time, our mother had gone shopping. I heard the front door open and thought Mom had returned. "What are you doing?" When I turned around, it was my father's voice. "Dad? Why are you here? What happened to work?" I came back because I forgot something. "Where's Mom?" "She's shopping." "So, what are you two doing? Tell me." Confronted with my father's gaze, I froze in fear. My body felt as if it had turned to stone. Sensing this, my sister tried to protect me. We were just playing a game, but I was the one who suggested it. "Odessa hasn't done anything wrong." "Is that true?" "It's true." With that, my father forcefully pulled my sister's arm. Seeing this, I worried that he might harm her in some way. At that moment, I felt a responsibility to protect my sister. I wanted to do it, and I asked Amy to join me. "So please don't hurt her." "I see. So you instigated this after all. Go back to your room." "Understood." As instructed, I returned to my room. A small consolation was that our house was built with wheelchair accessibility in mind. I could hear my father yelling from afar. I deeply regretted my own powerlessness at that moment. The door to my room opened. I tensed up, thinking it was my father, but it was actually my mother. "Is everything okay?" "I'm fine, but how is Sis?" "Yes, she's all right too." Something felt off about my mother's response, and I tried to head to the living room. "Where are you going?" "I have to save my sister." "There's no need to worry. If you go there, you might provoke your father again." "I understand. I'll stay here." My mother was right. If I went, it might have worsened the situation. I decided to trust my mother's reassurance. "I'm sorry. I wish I were stronger." Due to my father's domineering nature, my mother always tried not to provoke him. "Don't worry about it. I'm grateful for you." After a while, my sister came into the room. "Sis, Father has gone to work, so there's no more trouble." "I see. Did he say anything to you?" "Yes, a little, but you don't have to worry, Odessa." "I'm okay. My sister has always been someone who acts cheerfully, no matter the circumstances. The struggle wasn't only mine. My sister was suffering too. Moreover, my mother was making efforts to mitigate the anger my father directed toward me. I was always living with the help of others. I was trying to find a way not to be a burden to them. When my sister entered middle school, she began to distance herself a bit from me. Previously, she had helped with everyday tasks like dressing and using the restroom. I knew she was busy with club activities and friends, so I tried to accept it as inevitable. I told myself that I just had to endure. I needed to become stronger. At that time, not only my legs, but also my hands had significantly weakened. It had become even more difficult to lift heavy objects. Still, giving up was not an option. One day, I was organizing my room and rearranging the shelves. That was the moment. Perhaps I leaned too much on the shelf. It shook, and items from the top fell down. Ouch! I need to pick these up quickly. But sitting in the wheelchair, I couldn't reach the floor. While I was earnestly trying, suddenly the door opened. "What's all this noise? What is going on here?" It was the worst possible timing, especially since I did not want my father to witness this. "This is, well..." Though I tried to respond, I couldn't find the right words. To my father, it must have seemed like I was making excuses. "Who do you think will clean this up?" That is... I had no memory of my father ever helping. If there were any such memories, they were minimal and unspoken. "Why do you always do unnecessary things?" He sighed in frustration. His nagging continued endlessly. "Unlike Amy, You can't do anything. Do you understand that? I might not be able to do as much as her, but I want to do what I can by myself. If I was going to be scolded anyway, I decided to express my feelings to my father, hoping, just slightly, that he might understand. Do you think you can do that? Yes. Next, he laughed out loud. You say funny things. You, capable of doing things? How could someone with disabilities like you ever be capable? Though I expected rejection, being completely dismissed was another matter. His laughter continued. It was not an appropriate response to his daughter. From that moment, I shut down my thoughts. I was just waiting for time to pass. Hey, are you listening? I didn't respond at all. What's the matter with you? You really are strange. After saying that, my father left the room. Alone in the room, my tears spilled over. From that day, even as a child, I decided not to cry anymore. Afterward, my mother mostly took care of me. My father did not help at all. It seemed as if he had no interest. Hey, do you have a fever? Really? I don't know. You should rest today. No, I'm fine. I can go to school. I was desperate to convince my mother, but she worried something might happen to me and decided that I should stay home that day. The main reason I wanted to go to school was that my father happened to have taken the day off. Honestly, I wanted to avoid spending time alone with him, but something unexpected happened. Are you okay? When my father entered the room and spoke to me, I pretended to be asleep to avoid interacting. However, he did not leave the room right away. I covered myself with the blanket and watched apprehensively. I'll leave this here for you. Eventually, I sat up. On the table, there were sports drinks and jelly prepared. I felt a surprising joy. It was an experience I had never had before. My thoughts were in turmoil. What was his intention in doing this? That day, my father visited my room several times. Every time I pretended to be asleep. Feeling better? My mother asked when she returned from work. Yeah, I don't think I have a fever. Did something happen? Kind of. Dad seemed kind today. That's good then. Good? What do you mean? Well, I actually asked your father to take care of you today. Really? It seems okay so far. It's more like, I'm just surprised because we haven't really talked. I haven't processed it yet. I was strict with him. I told him he needs to be kinder to you, Odessa. My emotions were mixed. Despite trying not to get affected, I was confused about what I should feel or do. Then, as my mother said, my father's attentiveness increased. He began to take care of me more actively, and gradually, we even started having conversations. It seems like your relationship with Dad is getting better. Do you think so? I'd be happy if you two could get along, but I still think about the past. That's true. It's not easy to forget everything. Actually, I also want to spend time playing with you, Odessa. That's no problem, sis. Instinctively, I showed a smile to my sister. During that period, I hoped for an improvement in my relationship with my father. As I entered middle school, my father's attitude became even stricter. In the background, my sister was in her exam period. I tried to accept this, but I realized there were other reasons too. I need to use the bathroom. I told my father I could manage on my own, but deliberately sought his help. I can't help you right now. Hey, you're a middle schooler now. You should be able to go to the bathroom by yourself, right? I felt this was his true nature. The kind days from before felt like a dream. Furthermore, there was another change. My mother became as cold as my father. Mom, could you help me with something? I'm busy right now, maybe later. I couldn't even rely on my sister. Just like that, their consideration for me gradually faded. Whatever I asked for was often overlooked. Even as a middle school student, the feeling of being alienated by my family was painful. Odessa, you will eat your meals in your room from now on. Why? Just because. Neither my mother nor my sister said anything. Gradually, I found myself eating alone in my room more often. One reason for the change was the results of a medical diagnosis I received at the hospital. My health was not promising, and my illness was progressing. This was a decision made by my father after learning the truth. Doubts deepened about whether I truly belonged in this family. Why is it only Odessa? Such questions reached my ears while I was studying. Hurry up and get ready. If Odessa is staying home, then I'll stay home too. Are you sure that's okay, Amy? You wanted to go to a private school, right? Yes, that's true. Are you going to defy me? If you want to stay, stay, but give up on going to the private school. I was shocked to hear such unbelievable statements. Finally, the true situation became clear. My father was using the exams as a threat to manipulate my mother and sister. I had never harbored hatred towards my father before, but this was clearly over the line. However, with my limited mobility, I wondered how I should handle this. From that day on, I couldn't stop thinking about this issue. I'm going out for a bit. I'm sorry, Odessa. I'm fine, don't worry. In the distance, I could hear my father calling. It seemed he was urgently summoning me. Come on, hurry up. Every time I showed a sad expression, I worried they might overexert themselves because of me. So, I decided to act strong. They often left me behind when they went out. If this happens every time, I will gradually become accustomed to the situation. Previously, my father often went out to avoid me, but at some point, he began to act without hesitation. Let's go out to eat today. Let's go. I think this sudden plan is a bit much. Well, maybe I decided this. Hurry up. Of course, Odessa will be waiting at home. Amy, who was listening next to me, tried to say something, but I grabbed her arm to stop her. It's okay. Go ahead. You are so kind, Odessa. Wait a minute. Do you know what they say about me at work? You probably don't. My father began to talk about how miserable he was. Even at work, I suffer because I am a father with a daughter who has disabilities. Can you understand how frustrating that is? There was no way I could understand that. Such complaints should not be directed at me. He was hardly fit to be a father. But what could I, a middle school student who needed a wheelchair for mobility and whose life greatly depended on support, do against him? Don't worry, I'll manage on my own. It's okay. My mother and Amy looked at me worriedly. If I go along, I'll just be in the way, and you shouldn't have to worry about how others look at you. Amy was not fully convinced, but she still went out with our parents. I could not predict what would happen if I defied my father. It felt like the wise choice. Even after advancing to high school, my father's attitude did not change. However, an incident occurred that made the past seem insignificant. After seeing off my family, I returned to my room. I felt lost, wondering when I would be freed from this life. It was the summer vacation of my 3rd year in middle school. I hate to ask, but could you take care of Odessa for 3 days? Isn't she coming with you? Odessa says she wants to concentrate on her studies as she is preparing for exams. Is that okay? Yes? Then leave her to me. That's how I ended up being left at my grandparents' house. Lying had become the norm. It seemed my father felt no guilt, even lying to his own parents. Watching him wave goodbye with a smile, I felt an indescribable sense of dread. Once he was out of sight, my grandmother asked, "It's just us here. You don't have to hold back. Are you really okay with not going with everyone else? Being with me, Mom and Amy can't fully enjoy themselves. I want to avoid that at all costs," I replied emphatically. "Odessa, you really have a big heart." "Not really. But here, I don't have to worry about what others think and can relax as I please. Yes, thank you. Perhaps my grandmother sensed what was in my heart, but she did not probe any deeper. I truly felt comfortable here. As a middle school student, I didn't have the power or wisdom to change the situation. Being scrutinized by others was unpleasant, so I was truly grateful for my grandmother's warm support. 3 days later, my mother and sister came to pick me up. Just the two of you? Sorry, Dad has already gone home. I see. Was Odessa okay? She was very good. This is my advice to you. Make sure you take good care of her. Yes, I understand. I was listening to their conversation from behind a pillar. On the way home, my mother said, I'm fine. You don't have to push yourself. That's right. We're thinking of you, Odessa. I know, but I would hate for something to happen to you. When we got home, my father continued to show his usual cold attitude. Normalcy returned. Under normal circumstances, this would be a breaking point, but I managed to hold on because of my mother and sister's support. However, whether following my father's directions or not, they began to clearly avoid me. Being ignored by my father was always the case, but it was extremely painful to see them both starting to act similarly. There were times when I felt completely isolated. I'm okay. I can do this, I started to tell myself. From then on, I tried to stay in my room as much as possible whenever I was at home. Being in my room meant I didn't have to interact with others, and it spared me from feeling uncomfortable. However, I later realized that this decision was a mistake. It was a spring Sunday during my second year of high school. When I woke up, the house felt unusually quiet. As I headed to the living room, I noticed a piece of paper on the table. Unfortunately, we have no need for someone with a disability like you. Try your best to live. What is this? It was a letter addressed to me. Then my father called me on my smartphone. Hello, Odessa. Did you read that letter? I tried to read it, but that's what it means. Goodbye. Wait a minute. Is there something else? What does this letter mean? It means exactly as it is written. We are tired of supporting someone with a disability like you. Don't worry about us. With that, the call abruptly ended. I pondered how to respond and then contacted my mother. Hello, Mom. From your reaction, I see you've read the letter. So someone with a disability like me is a nuisance? It's as if I'm some kind of monster. Yes, but you don't have to worry about anything. Hey, because you are not his child, so rest assured. What do you mean? Explain it to me. Listen, call this number as soon as you can. Wait, tell me more. Sorry, he's nearby. I'll contact you again later. I was simply stunned. If what my mother said was true, does that mean I am not my father's biological child? Despite wondering about it, I couldn't find an answer. I called the number my mother had given me. The person who answered introduced himself as a lawyer named Rogers. I am calling as instructed by my mother, I said. I see. Let's discuss this in detail. Following these instructions, I went to his law office. There, I learned the true meaning behind the words my mother had recently spoken. I was also told the truth about my birth. Initially, the shock was unbelievable, but it seemed that my mother and sister had kept it a secret out of concern for me. Afterward, I started living on my own. Thanks to Mr. Rogers' support, I have been living comfortably. 8 years have passed since my mother spoke those words. During this period, there have been several milestones to celebrate. Amy graduated from college and is living independently. Amy, is something wrong? I asked. Sorry, it's sudden, but it seems like Dad has found out your address, Odessa, she replied. Just to be safe, please know that Mom and I haven't told him anything. Yeah, I understand. In fact, I've been in touch with them since moving away from home. Of course, without Dad knowing. Does that mean he's coming here? Probably. Okay. Do you think it's okay if I pay him back a little this time? I asked. Amy, my life now, it's all thanks to Mom and you, right? That might be true, she said. So, I want to show my gratitude to both of you in some way, especially for Mom. I left home almost as if I was running away. It's not your fault, sis. A week after the phone call from my sister, just as she said, my father showed up at the apartment where I live. The intercom rang, and I responded, Yes. Hello? Odessa, it's been a long time. How could someone with disabilities like you live in a high-rise condo like this? Well, what do you think?
Hey, that's not the way you should talk to your parents, he snapped. Behind my father, I could see my mother standing there, looking apologetic. From her expression, it was clear she had been suffering even in my absence. Then I told my father how I had been managing to live this life. Upon hearing this, he directed his anger toward my mother. What are you saying? I had no idea about any of this. I had intended to explain everything properly at first, I said. But when you learned that Odessa had disabilities, your expression changed, didn't it? So what? She's someone else's child, and moreover, a person with disabilities. When Mr. Rogers told me this fact, it felt as though my heart stopped. According to him, I was the daughter of my mother's best friend. My biological father had died in an accident, and my birth mother was in the final stages of cancer with little time left. At that time, I was adopted by my current parents. My biological mother left me a substantial inheritance to ensure I wouldn't face hardships in the future. Additionally, the house I currently live in was previously inhabited by my biological parents. Isn't it inappropriate to blame Mom? I asked. Shut up. No, I won't be silent. I see how terribly you treat Mom. Even after I became independent, your violent behavior did not subside. I had been your target before, but now the target is my mother. Don't you think so, Mom? I sought agreement from my mother, and she nodded quietly. What are you talking about without any proof? He demanded. What if there is proof? I said. I took out my smartphone and played a recording. The recording captured my father hurling abuse at my mother and eventually escalating to physical violence. How about that? Do you understand now? When was this? Even though I've been living away, we've kept in constant contact. You didn't notice, did you? Well, of course you wouldn't have. You bastard. No matter how much you shout, it's futile. Since there's this much evidence, you understand what will happen next, right? What do you mean? He asked. I looked at my mother and signaled with my eyes. I'm separating from you. What? Of course, don't worry. Mom will live here with me. There's no way I'll let you do that. Your opinion doesn't matter anymore. He seemed agitated and was about to become violent. That's when it happened. Stop it. What are you doing? A shout came from the back of the house. Who are you? My father demanded. This person is my spouse, I said. Spouse? Nice to meet you. I'm Edward, my husband replied. My father lowered his hand in surprise. You knew about this too. My mother nodded. Of course, Amy knows about it too. Without my consent as her father. Just like that. I'm already an adult, so there shouldn't be a problem. Now, can you please leave? Just when I thought he would leave, it seemed he had not given up yet. Wait a minute. You must have inherited other properties besides this house, right? So what? As a parent, I should have the right to receive part of that inheritance. On what basis do you say that? There is no such right. Seeing my father's desperate demeanor, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Why are you laughing so much? Because you are making completely irrelevant statements. My father was stamping his feet in frustration. The road ahead of you will be tough, but you should do your best. You'll have to pay alimony too, by the way. Grandpa and Grandma already know the situation, so it's pointless to try and rely on them. You really planned it all out to this extent. His demeanor changed completely, and he became quite quiet. He was probably reflecting. There's nothing more to talk about, so goodbye. Wait, listen to me. I really apologize. My father took a perfect pose of apology. What does it feel like to abandon all pride towards someone you've looked down upon? I pondered this. However, his apology did not change my heart. There's no point in doing this, so please leave quickly. Even after all this, you're still not going to forgive me and push me away. Yes. If you're not going to leave, I will call the police. I have all the evidence, and you might get arrested. He then hurried away with a frightened look. I took a deep breath, feeling relaxed. Well done, Edward said. Thank you. It was very stressful. Are you okay with me, Odessa, about us living together here? Yes, it's okay. It's something we all decided together. Yes, this is a place where you can be free. I also spoke to my sister about this over the phone. That's great. See, there's no problem, right? Actually, I wanted to come with you. I understand how you feel. Please come visit next time. Yes, I will. In this way, my mother and I became free from my father's control. While we haven't reached a final resolution yet, we celebrated together that day. After that, we visited Mr. Rogers, the lawyer, with the evidence already gathered. The proceedings went smoothly. I'm grateful for everything, I said. It's my duty after all, he replied. Please take good care of the situation with your father. The police will handle any issues of violence, but leave the alimony to me. 2 weeks after the consultation, my parents' divorce was officially finalized. This ensured that my mother would no longer be abused by my father. I was truly relieved by this resolution. After the divorce, we moved all of my mother's belongings to our high-rise condo. You've helped me a lot, Odessa, my mother said. I'm glad to do so, Mom. I will continue to express my gratitude in action. You don't have to do that. But I want to do this, so don't worry, I assured her cheerfully. With that determination, we decided to open a new chapter in our lives together. Whenever time allowed, my sister would visit us. I finally grasped true peace, I remarked with deep emotion. Thank you so much for your help all this time, Amy. That's natural. Blood-related or not, Odessa, you are my irreplaceable sister, she said with a gentle smile. Yes, I replied energetically. Then I noticed a slight cloud over my mother's expression. Is something wrong? I asked her. Yes, I just received a call from your father, she answered with a hint of confusion. A call? Can I see that for a moment? I said, taking the mobile phone from her and answering the call. I was wrong. Please, won't you come back? I heard my father's voice. Mom will be returning, I firmly replied. Is that Odessa? My actions up to now have been wrong. Please give me another chance to make things right, my father pleaded. I'm sorry, but that's simply not possible. If you understand, then please don't contact us ever again, I stated definitively. After ending the call, I immediately added the number to the blocked caller list and handed the phone back to my mother. Are you okay? My mother asked. Yes, there's nothing to worry about, I reassured her. My father had resigned from his job at the company he worked for, and his whereabouts were unknown since then. He might be living somewhere alone now, But his location or activities no longer had any relevance to us. Meanwhile, our family continues to live happily and joyfully together. Experiencing such a sense of liberation was a first in my life. I look forward to spending many more happy days with my family.